straight to Emily with the press review. She's starting off today with the Italian front pages. That's because they're covering the latest scrap, if that's the right word, between Giorgia Meloni and Donald Trump it is this time.
Yes, well, it all kicked off after Donald Trump had a few comments against the Pope, which Giorgia Meloni called unacceptable. And now Donald Trump has said that the Italian Prime Minister lacks courage. Now, of course, this is on most of the Italian front pages. But let's start with La Stampa. Here, the Liberal Daily talks about a painful divorce between Meloni and Trump. And this opinion here down the side says that Meloni's "you're fired" moment will boost her popularity. And it really seems to have been having that effect. Trump almost managing to pull off a miracle in Italy, getting all the Italian papers to pretty much agree. Let's have a look. On the right first of the Italian papers, this is Il Giornale here talking about Giorgia Meloni's Italy First approach, which it celebrates. And on the other side, on the very, very left of the Italian press, the communist Il Manifesto here, headlines with "She used to be MAGA, Make America Great Again," of course, celebrating that Meloni is distancing herself from that movement. Now, La Repubblica talks about a unifying moment for Italy in support of what it calls, quotes, "a new Maginot Line of defence against the unpredictable man occupying the White House."
Next, Emily is going to take us to Ukraine. A new form of warfare seems to be developing there, Emily.
Yes, and quite a worrying one too. This is a report in Foreign Policy this morning. Here it talks about the state in Ukraine. The pressure of the Russian drone warfare has led to Ukraine turning to a new kind of super soldier, specifically robots. Now, for the moment, they're not quite Terminator standards. They look more like a four-wheeled platform equipped with guns and Starlink terminals, so operators can stay out of drone distance and drive them from a distance as well. Now, up until recently, those were mainly used for supplying the front line with equipment, for example, or evacuating wounded soldiers. But now these machines have taken a new step. Let's have a look in Politico. For the first time in history, robots have managed to capture Russian army positions and even managed to force Russian soldiers to surrender. Now, I can show you a still from footage taken from one of these robots. It's a little bit blurry, but these two figures here are Russian soldiers actually surrendering to the bot. Now, according to Volodymyr Zelensky, these robots have performed more than 22,000 missions on Ukrainian front lines in the first 3 months of 2026 alone.
Yeah, certainly a big change. Now, meanwhile, a conference on Sudan is taking place today in Berlin. We're going to talk about the situation in Sudan, in fact, in perspective in the next half hour of the programme, but it marks what is the third anniversary of the start of the conflict.
Yeah, let's start having a look at the European website EU Observer. Here it's talking about that summit in Berlin, which will look to shape Sudan's post-war future, despite the absence of warring parties. On one side, of course, you have the Sudanese army, which basically controls Khartoum and cities like Port Sudan. And on the other side, you have the Rapid Support Forces, which control Darfur and most of Western Sudan. Now, according to the EU Observer, there's no clear end in sight to this conflict. Despite the recent advances of the Sudanese army, they're making the most of an interruption in weapon and missile deliveries from the UAE to the RSF that have slowed down since the Hormuz crisis. Now, let's have a look at two opinion pieces. The first one in The Guardian here this morning, an editorial. It points the finger at the UAE, but also Saudi Arabia, Egypt and Ethiopia. It accuses those countries of exacerbating the food country through their discreet support of the RSF. Meanwhile, the New York Times has this opinion piece here written by a former reporter, a former correspondent in Sudan. She talks about her experience witnessing the devastation of what she calls the world's largest hunger crisis and how humanitarian organisations are struggling to meet up with the ever-growing needs of the Sudanese people.
And it seems as well that a photo series from Sudan has taken one of the top prizes at the 2026 World Press Photo Awards.
Yeah, this is a photo from a series of photos called A Nation Trapped. This photo here taken in Sudan by Abdul Monal Essa, which took top spot in the stories category, as I said, a series of photos. But there are a number of other photos that are well worth a look. This one here taken in Gaza of Palestinians climbing on top of an aid truck trying to get to delivery of flour. And there are others, including this one here, taken in Morocco. It looks almost like a Renaissance painting. It shows the Taborida equestrian tradition in Morocco. And finally, two of my favourites, this photo here of ballerinas in Soweto, which I think is particularly beautiful. And finally, an honourable mention for this giant panda.
Oh, very, very cute. Some beautiful photos there. Finally, from Emily, we're going to go to the UK. This is a story about a Labour MP who has launched a rather unusual campaign.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you're aware, Stuart, but we're rapidly approaching the summer of sex.
Are we?
Yes, we are. Bear with me. This is a new campaign launched by a Labour MP. This is the front page here of the Daily Star. Of course, British press having a field day with this latest campaign. This front page here, yes, 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 Minister. Now, the so-called Squeaker of the House, as the paper calls her, Labour MP Samantha Nilbert, has launched her campaign called Yes, Sex Please, We're British, obviously a reference to the 1973 film No Sex Please, We're British. Now, the aim is basically just to get people talking about sex and to change the way that sex ed is taught in the UK, focusing more on consent, sexual violence, sexual health, but also highlighting topics like the menopause or endometriosis. But there's one particular aspect of this campaign that's creating a little bit more of a stir. We can have a look in the Times for this story here. Niblet also plans to have a sex toy exhibition in the middle of the Houses of Parliament. Now, she's not quite yet sure if there are any parliamentary regulations against sex toy exhibitions, but I'm sure that will get people talking as she would like them to.
I'm sure it certainly will. Well, she certainly made the front pages with it, hasn't she?
Yeah, success so far.
All I can think about is Meg Ryan in When Harry Met Sally. But anyway, if you're of a certain age, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Emily, thanks very much. Emily Paul with the papers here on France 24. A lot more coming up then. Perspective after the break. As I said, we're talking about Sudan today, so do stay with us for that.